Now, for you, Vborn,
Hmm.
for your first experience, was the person or the individual experienced, or were they also new to it?
They were also new to it,
Hmm.
and honestly, though, when you are new, you really don't have a lot of options to pick from.
Right.
So she was new, newer than me, but I was technically still new.
Yeah.
So it was like a new relationship in general for both of us. And
Interesting.
yeah, it went really well, but it just didn't work out. That's all.
Right. So that means both
Hmm.
parties are new to the dynamic. What are the
Hmm.
challenges of making it work out?
The only challenge I can think of is what's next? What do we do next?
Yeah.
Because when you're new, you just don't know how to actually lead,
Hmm.
and that's actually a problem. But it's not that big of a problem though. Assuming that you do communicate with your partner that we um research just to see where can we go from here. So being new is really isn't much of a problem. The only challenge I can see is really a challenge that you have to communicate with your partner about what you want to go from there.
Right.
Other than that, the rest is just trivial.
I know we like to talk about communication a lot, and it is in every dynamic. A lot of
Mhm.
people try to figure out what the secret recipe is, right? It's a lot simpler, but hard to do.
Mhm.
How about in your case, maybe when your first encounter was it with someone that was new as well, or someone's kind of experienced?
I would say if we're going with my my experiences that kind of bled into real life, because honestly, my experiences on the internet, they were always people with some minor experience, and I wouldn't really count that as it was never very serious. I never entered a full MS relationship before Master, uh the one in front of you. And
Groove, okay.
True, true.
the one visually in front of our eyeballs at this very second.
The man,
Um,
the myth, the Vborn.
The legend.
um, in person though, the dominant friend that I had that I was kind of in a relationship with, we didn't label it as MS. We weren't ready for that, and it did not end up working out. But uh, when we were doing it though, yes, he did have a lot of experience. A lot. He was kind of notorious in the area,
Hmm.
and I was really surprised whenever he was interested in me because he we didn't make it obvious right away what we were into, but I had that vibe, I had that feeling. There's something about people who have a dominant or submissive energy. I couldn't quite place it, but it's like we have our own little radars, if that makes any sense. You can just tell.
No,
Hmm.
it's true. I agree. I agree.
But aside from my experience, it's been very scattered and not very long lasting. I would say with Master Reborn, this is the longest that I've definitely been convinced. Like, okay, this is working good.
Good. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Think
Main question here is, why does the master slave dynamic appeal more to you than other kink dynamics?
for me, the master slave dynamic appeals more to me than the other king dynamic because it's the one that focuses mostly on the power exchange, which is the biggest king of mine.
Yes, same thing as Master basically. My other dynamics that I could like list would be just basic dominant submissive, which again I said I had some experience in. Or another one that you hear a lot is the daddy little girl dynamic,
Yeah.
and it doesn't quite fit what I'm looking for. Daddy little girl comes close because I mean I do like a doting disciplinarian as a partner, but the implications of it being parental is a hard no for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of uh I kind of lean more towards master slave just because it fits there and it's kind of one step above or up. I shouldn't say above because I guess it's just more intense, like more of an intense commitment. Um, because dominant submissive is mostly just for the bedroom, and I like total power exchange outside of the bedroom as well as in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would also say that with master slave, it's more closely aligned with the values that I desire to give and receive out of a relationship because I like a lot of structure and discipline in my life. I think it motivates me to be a better person. I I keep my attitude in check way better and how I carry myself because I want to be a positive reflection of the person that I'm serving. It feels good for me to give complete control to someone without it feeling like it's just temporary or like that you're just playing pretend or playing a role.
And to add on to what she said about the little girl dynamic is a good dynamic, but it's just not all about power exchange to me. So that's why I prefer the master slave dynamic more.
Hmm.
Why would it not be? Because some people might think that, oh, well, it's the daddy, right? You should be in control of everything. So why do you think it's not necessarily a full power exchange?
I guess mostly because of the people that I know that are in that relationship, and to me, it seemed more like um. Right, to me personally, it seemed like you're spoiling the sub more than you should. Than you should have been, which is not really my style.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel weird with the term daddy and baby girl. That's about it.
Hey, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to be called daddy, right? Or sometimes you don't have to think of your partner as a little girl, right?
Hmm.
You know. Well, what is the
Hmm.
difference between a standard DNS, which is a dominant submissive relationship, versus a MS master slave relationship?
Okay. So this is a really good question because for a standard DS relationship, it's mostly about the play, the sexual aspect of it, like in the bedroom kind of thing, and actual MS is more about the lifestyle. So it's a more 24/7 approach instead of just like part time like DS. And DS is just like a good starting point for power exchange, but it's not the end of it. MS is, if that makes sense to you.
That does make sense. It kind of makes sense as to where many, in my opinion, many DAS relationships fail is because they don't find like if power exchange is for them. And they're like, oh,
Hmm.
they get into the standard daddy baby girl, daddy little girl, and I think a lot of people tend to feel like it's a all about power exchange or not. You know.
Hmm.
You master. I believe that that pretty much sums it up because Wiggle, you just mentioned that you can kind of crash and burn. I was gonna say it's a walk before you run type of thing. Uh, if you jump directly into master slave, not having explored a dominant submissive relationship before, you will crash and burn because it might be too intense for you. Um, so dominant submissive is a crucial first stage to master slave, and sometimes that's as far as anyone wants to go, and that works for them, and that's great. Um, but I would say master slave is the next step up if you want to take total power exchange further, because like Master said, it's a lifestyle. Dominant submissive is more bedroom oriented. It's often not as strict. It's kind of just has its playtime, and then you go do whatever else you want to do. You're not supposed to really have an off switch with master slave.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the difference is that dominant submissive is just kind of like an umbrella term for some power exchange,
Right.
but master slave is complete power exchange.
Mm-hmm. Huge difference, right?
Mm.
So how do you interact with each other, or how does one interact with each other when in a master slave dynamic? Doesn't necessarily need to be your specific relationship. You could add some in there or not. It's up to you.
Also a very good question because it's kind of going along with the other question down the list. But for now, for the standard master and slave relationship, the interaction is very hierarchical. Did I say that right? Hierarchical, yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, it's like a superior or a ruler to his subordinate or subject, with strong emphasis on title. So think of people like doctor who people who have a PhD and want you to refer to them as doctor. It's very similar to that. And for my pet and and I specifically, we interact casually just as friends, but the hierarchy is still there, which is the hierarchy is still there when she refers to me as master and I refer to her as my pet. So we can still talk normally, but the hierarchy needs to be still be there for it to be an MS interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time where I demand absolute obedience from her is when we having a serious discussion. That's about it.
So you said about the 24/7 lifestyle, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
it's usually in a 24/7 lifestyle. So that means like outside too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. How does that balance out normal interactions with other people? Let's say like you two are out. Was it a little bit hard or difficult at first to being able to do it outside versus just inside the bedroom?
No, not exactly. I mean, the only chance I think of is having like a tiny bit embarrassment that you're sharing this with other. But overall, I actually love it, and I actually want more of it. But sometimes when with vanilla people, they don't really understand it, so we have to like really die it down so that it doesn't conflict with others.
Yeah, I can see that being really really hard. Which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting because it's actually been around for quite a long time. You know, the
Right?
master slave dynamic, but a lot of people might take it the wrong way. Which kind of sucks, right? Because it is
Yeah.
a kink dynamic. Not just being a master and being a slave. There's more than that.
Right. Right.
Mm.
Eh,
I'm not sure if I have anything to add. Hmm? How we interact around other folks and stuff. I mean, yeah, there's really no difficulty balancing that or how we behave around other people because I mean, yeah, you do have to keep up appearances sometimes around like vanilla folks or like if you're around friends or colleagues or whatever, it's not like I go around wearing my big bulky slave collar outside in these places because you are going to confuse a lot of people. You just, I mean, maybe you'll go with something daintier or subtle if you like to wear, day collars or something. Or if we're talking to other vanilla people, maybe I won't always openly say master. Um, but I mean, other than that, no, there's still a level of respect whenever I try to speak with him.
Hmm.
It is tempting to brat as much as humanly possible while he can't do anything in front of inquisitive eyes, but no, I hold it back.
Can that happen in a master slave relationship?
Okay. For standard traditional MS, no. But for me, I actually don't mind too much because to me it doesn't really considering as stepping out line. But if she does, I would tell her straight away, and that's when she will get her due punishment for it.
Makes
Mm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of people in the MS community will actually get quite angry at people asking this question on FetLife.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed it a
Mm-hmm.
lot. They get quite defensive. They're like, "No, a slave can't be bratty," and you will get the very rare person that's like, well, I mean, yeah, because sometimes it's fun to have a little pushback. Just depends on the style of what the master prefers, but I mean, I think it can be a lot of fun sometimes because the slave has some joy being teasing their master a little bit, and the master gets to enjoy a bit of a takedown, if you know that term.
Right?
So I mean, if it works for them, then it works for them. But it is funny how you will mostly find a lot of people in MS like swear that it's like, no, no, the slave can't be bratty. But yeah.
I can
Yep.
imagine that. I can imagine
They are very hardcore, I'm telling you.
that.
Hmm.
But I think it's really good to make it your own, um, but
Hmm.
still adhering to the standard, right? Even with someone that has a lot of experience, would you still consider them sometimes to be inexperienced, if that makes sense?
So yes, because it's really dependent on the partner too, because you may be experienced, but you won't be experienced with them specifically. So you might not know them enough, and you will screw up sometime. But that's okay as long as you still being honest with them and talk about the issue and resolving them, which is natural. Like in any other relationship, you're bound to have some screw up now and then.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I have nothing to add.
I just know you that. I just know you well. That's all.
But I think it is important for people to understand that just because an individual has that experience doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be really good at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a lot of people, let's say a lot of people that label themselves as the role for slave, right? Do you think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of get into relationships that people say that they're really experienced, but shouldn't be that experienced? If that makes sense. So, for example, if you are a slave in this role, right,
Hmm.
and you are talking with a master or mistress that says that they have experience, right? Oftentimes, that would just lead to the slave to automatically be believe that they're safe, right? They're like, okay, I should be in good hands.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know, Master. Do you want to cover this, or should I go from my
Um,
perspective?
you should cover this because this is more about the slave perspective than the master. So you go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I see where Wriggles is coming from. Yeah, I would say if you're kind of a newer slave, you do want to put your trust in someone who says that they have experience. I would say that I did when I was a little younger, I was a little more naive to be like, oh, okay, they know exactly what they're into. Um, Case in point, my good friend that took me to the BDSM dungeon.
Hmm.
He did have a lot of experience, and he was absolutely fantastic in his role. I really, really respected him. But then he revealed to me that he was really into fire play. And
Interesting.
no matter how much experience somebody has, you should always be very wary of someone who is into some particularly dangerous things. So it is a bit of a dangerous, I could almost say a little bit of a dangerous drug there, wanting to give up control to someone who says that they know what they're doing. And it's something that a lot of slaves end up having to learn the hard way is you have to really know how to sort the people who slide into your DMs like, "Hey girl, I know exactly what I'm doing. Let me control you. Tell me what you're wearing right now, blah blah blah." You have to it's something you do get with age and experience, I think, cuz back then I was very naive. And now, I can spot someone who's just talking out of their ass a mile away. So yeah, it actually can be a bit of an issue, when it comes to people who swear they have experience, but they actually don't. You just have to, use judgment and go really slow. I think that's the best advice I could give of other submissives is you have to go slow so that you take the time to detect anything that might be off, or you might realize that okay, maybe they aren't as experienced as they say they are.
Listen to the full episode on all major platforms.